come to where I am, demonstrate some stuff, play a little bit, sort of like combination, lecture, guitar lesson kind of thing. Like when I was in high school, my first guitar hero was like Peter Buck from REM. So, playing these kind of like, kind of droney open chord kind of things, to now like, throwing all like harmony, melody, and timbre or rhythm out the window, and just doing this really kind of abstracted kind of stuff. Like Derek Bailey was a like a session musician in England that played like show tunes and like whatever he needed to play. So he was like a completely virtuosic guitar player. But if you hear his music, it's like, what? It's lots of like, I don't know, he would never use a delay pedal. These kind of like skittering, scattering kind of noisy things. And I got really into this because I felt like I could do something in that I couldn't do with like chords and leads, which was like I could get into a flow. I was, at the time that I was doing this like super abstracted, feedbacky, noisy kind of stuff, I saw a note in a rehearsal space that was like, you could take guitar lessons from Richard Lloyd from television. I had been playing for, 10 years or something or more at that point, but I didn't really know kind of what I was doing. Like I knew that this did that, and I knew that that did that, and I knew that did that, but I didn't know what they were, and I didn't know how they were connected, and so if music was like a picture, I could see like a little over here, and I could see a little over here, and I could see a little over here, but I couldn't see the underlying, structure. So the first thing he said to me when we sat down, he said, can you play a major scale? And I was like, I think so. And I totally didn't, but I was like, and he's like, oh, stop. He's like, okay, so we'll start with the major scale, which I think is pretty much where he starts with everyone anyway, because that's the thing that is, like I always say, it's like the curtain rod that music hangs off of. A major scale is not just some arbitrary thing. There's this underlying physical, truth, natural, physics behind it. This first thing he told me blew my mind because I had never noticed it before, but he's like, okay, so let's talk about the ratios. He's like, so you play a string of any length and it's ringing, okay? If you cut the duration or the length of string in half, you get an octave. And I had never noticed that the 12th fret on a guitar, every single guitar, this is the same distance as this, right? So you're just cutting the string in half. The string could be a mile long, it could be whatever, 3 feet long, and you're gonna get the octave, which is the same note at a higher pitch. So 1/2, and then you go 2/3. So you got 2/3 of the string ringing, 1/3 muted, and that's the 5th. And then you get 3/4. That's the 4th. 3/4 ringing, 1/4 not ringing. But the dirty secret of especially rock guitar playing is that you only need to do like 1 or 2 things really well. Like even like the best rock guitar players do like 1 or 2 things really well. Richard taught me this stuff. Another thing about television is that even though they were like my favorite band for so long, I found their music to be totally impenetrable. Like I could not figure out how to play it. And this was before the internet, so you couldn't just be like, how do you play Marquee Moon? And boom, it comes out. So I up to that point, I was like, how does this stuff happen? And so from the major scale, he taught me how modes work. And this is still like sort of the foundation of, how I think about music, how I visualize music on the neck, how I, learned where all the notes are and stuff. So, there's using 3 fingerings. which is like two whole steps, or a whole step and a half step, and a half step and a whole step. So just those three fingerings. You can play a major scale, winding up the guitar neck like this, in sequence, and pass through all the modes. So it goes like this. And so that was 7 patterns, each one starting successively on the intervals. So the first mode, the second mode, the third mode, the fourth mode, the fifth mode, the sixth mode, the seventh mode. Showed me these modes and I started practicing them. And one thing I realized was like, oh, suddenly I could figure out all these television songs. Like they were those patterns, but like, the phrasing and the order that you play them, but it's like the same. Like that's just the top of a Dorian mode, and he's just in there, or like Prove It is like. Up. All this stuff I'm playing in like a standard tuned guitar, right? Which is how I learned to play the guitar, like pretty much everybody does. But I almost never play in standard tuning. So an open tuning, is when you tune the guitar so that when you play all the strings open, it makes a chord. I started to be like, okay, I'm going to take these Richard ideas and I'm going to use that logic on this open tuning stuff, because up until that point, it was very hard for me. I only knew like the Keith Richards chords, which are like, and I couldn't not sound like that when I played them because I only knew these chords. With the open tuning stuff too, you can get tons of like, you can basically you have a drone that you can always go to. So like. And I often thought that rhythm, this is not any kind of earth-shattering news to anybody, but rhythm is the fundamental thing in music. Like, without that, it just falls apart. So, like, which is also why why I'm such a big Keith Richards fan, because he's a rhythm guitarist, really. And so, with the open tuning stuff too, you can kind of move around voicings in one position in a way. And like, but keep like this rhythm thing. So it's almost like I don't, like it keeps like it's like you're the rhythm and the lead guitar player. So I feel like I have, that's just, I feel like that's a big part of what I do, is that I've taken these fundamental ideas and, translated them to learn, like, to me, they're like discoveries, like, oh, that's how you play that chord. But they have a different timbre, they have a different feeling than if I played this same chord, like a, E minor 7th chord. If I played it in standard tuning, it would just ring differently. It would, the vibrations in the room would be a little bit different. Thank you. Thanks. And thanks again to NoonyTunes and Ben and RadioKismet, and thanks to y'all for coming. Sure.